This morning, I woke up today. In the morning, I woke up this morning. I woke up and remembered that every morning that I wake up, I woke up. So, after 16 months or so, I decided to make a upload on my not so driving YouTube channel. I had to make a decision between making a tutorial and a challenge video. I'm planning to make an upgraded version of my Toho mobile guide, but for that, I needed to wait for a new Winlater update that will increase Mali compatibility. So, challenge video it is, but just one thing.
I son!
At video games. I could try exploiting my little sister again, like I did last time. However, I'm pretty sure she doesn't trust me anymore, reasonably so. But then, it came to me. I have friends! A friend! And what do good friends do, other than use each other for views? There's just one tiny issue. What kind of an idiot would agree to do any challenge I could possibly present him? With nothing else left to do, I gave up and went back to bed. Eureka! I can kidnap his girlfriend! After holding the woman at gunpoint, I was able to record this excellent piece of innovation.
Yeah, I hate people who can't beat Ultrakill challenges. And I'm going to leave this bum if he does not beat the challenge.
Now, he has no choice but to participate in the twisted machinations of my mind. And also write the rest of the script. I'm going back to bed. Also, one last thing. The actual rules of the challenge are as follows. The difficulty will be set to violent. Only the Knuckleblaster and the Whiplash are allowed. Any other form of damage is strictly forbidden.
Just as we start the game and enter the first room, we are met with a pistol. But we don't actually have to pick it up to start the level, we can just use the shortcut. The Prelude levels were not that challenging to go through, because most of the enemies are relatively easy to beat. Since I have the Knuckleblaster as my only option to do damage, pairing will unfortunately be impossible to pull off. But on the other hand, the blast it creates is pretty useful to destroy larger groups of smaller fodder enemies, like the British men. Helped me regain health in big amounts. At the end of the level, all that was left to go through was the fight with Maurice. This was supposed to be one of the easiest fights in the game, but that boulder almost killed me. Right then and there, I knew what kind of challenge I was getting into. Storming through the entirety of the second level and making it to the third one, I came across the first bigger challenge of the run, the swords machine. I had to wait for the perfect moment where I could squeeze in a hit or two without losing health. I did that by learning his attack patterns. Which will inevitably become a trend in this run. I managed to avoid picking up the shotgun too, just by breaking the wall with the Knuckleblaster. But well, my second encounter with him didn't go as smoothly. I actually died once to him, but I luckily beat him on my second try. The fourth level was nothing worth mentioning, for I beat it easily, and with that I made it to the last level of the Prelude, in which I had to fight two big Serbs. Beating one of them was easy enough, and when the other one joined the fight, it was a little bit harder to manage, but nothing too crazy. Something I found that would later prove to be really useful is that punching them in the head would make them bleed much more than hitting them anywhere else on their body, and that is pretty useful for healing. In conclusion, you just have to be in the air for the most part of the fight, and you should be good. With them out of the way, the gates of hell spread open, just like a certain part of my body will in a few levels. And we begin at Layer 1 Limbo. I really like the aesthetic of the place, excluding the occasional drone strikes. The drones are not that big of a deal. You either kill them with a blast of a Knuckleblaster or whiplash them to the stratosphere. Oh yeah, also, I just avoided the nail gun by just going to the next room. Ah, poor nail gun, got abandoned. That kind of reminds me of myself when my father abandoned me when he caught me looking at the Ultrakill merch page. Breezing to the beginning rooms of the next level, I had a sight to see. Everything was burning. You know what that means? I had to beat up some community service workers. And they by some miracle were not that bad. Crazy, I know. and you could actually pull off a pretty cool combo. If you hit him with just a punch, it will knock him back just enough so that you can dash and perfectly land to hit him with a blast too, which is sick. The third level is a long one indeed. Even though I could have only picked up one skull, fought the boss and ended the level, I decided to do both paths and the secret encounter with the two swords machines. I chose the easier blue skull path to play through first. For the most part, I just blasted my way through the enemies, but when I made it to the last room with Maurice, he actually killed me. I just couldn't hit him for some unexplainable reason, so I had to run through half the rooms again, but I made sure to give his small stone face a good pounding when I get back. Oh, not in that way! Oh, well, slightly in that way. I proceeded to go on the red skull path. I made it to the last room and actually got trick-shotted by a stray. Me, just jumping around, minding my own business, and then somehow the stray hit the drone with his projectile so perfectly that it could fly just in the right angle that exposed right in my face. Not even a second later, the baller managed to hit me from downtown. Luckily, I restored my health and finished the room with relative ease. Finally, making it to the secret encounter with the two swords machines, I was scared, knowing that it was hard enough to manage just one of them, and now having two at the same time in that claustrophobic room was surely going to be a challenge. And I was right, it was excruciatingly hard. Even if I managed to get a hit on one of them, the other one would either slice me up or throw his sword right at me. After so many failed attempts, I knew that being direct was just not going to cut it. So I opened up my copy of Sun Tzu's Art of War. I used some of his wisdom and proceeded to stand in the corner and won immediately. Well, okay, I didn't just stand in the corner because I had to keep clinging onto the walls and hit their head, and the only thing to watch out for is their sword throw attack and shotgun blast. And with a little bit of trial and error, I beat them. Well now, before you say anything, I know about the soap that is hidden in the level. I wanted to pick it up, but I had flashbacks of my time in prison, so I had to go through the fight with the hideous mask without the soap, sadly. Now, I don't know why my favorite Swedish person, Hakira, is hitting this poor dude. In my opinion, I think he's been looks maxing, but there is only so much you can do about the deformed flesh all over his body. Back to the fight. Well, there is not much to say about this fight actually. I just try to keep close to his tail where the grappling hook is and smack at it until he dies. I finished the level with almost 30 restarts, which is not something to be proud of. The moment finally came. Claire de Lune. I enjoyed my last few moments of solace, walking to the boss arena knowing that now I will be met with the hardest challenge thus far, the fight with Ritu. I entered the boss room through the window, skipping the skulls, and with that I was set. He bowed down and the fight started. I died to him on my first try, but I was shocked that I was that close to beating him. I knew it would not be that long before I take my place as the victor.
Oh boy, do I love beating my little brother. In-game.
So, an attempt later, I managed to beat him. The only thing that was important was to always, but always close the distance between you and him, and don't let him get away even though he will try, time and time again. Because if he manages to make distance, he will annihilate you with his attacks. With him in the bag, I was super motivated because I beat him on my second try, but that was soon going to change and the cruelty of reality is yet to come. I was feeling pretty confident entering the last layer. Most of the levels were not that challenging to beat, even though I have only the two arms to fight. The only thing that I was thinking about is the fight with Minos' corpse. How will I be able to beat him having no ranged options? But there was still time to think about it. I still had 3 levels to complete. I mostly sped ran through the first level, and now making it to the second one, we got a new enemy. The soldiers, aka Pepsi Men from Timu. they prove to be really useful later in the run as a way of healing. A walking heal potion of sorts, since I can explode them with just one hit. Moving on forward, we made it to the rail cannon room. We can easily dodge picking this weapon up by just going around the walls and clipping into the final room of the level. With that out of the way, I proceeded to finish the room and the level.
Moving on to sheer heart attack? Anyways, this level was also nothing too worth mentioning, except the fact that in this level we meet the infamous Mind Flayer. That reminded me of P2, and just the idea of having to go through all of that with just the Knuckleblaster and Whiplash was enough to send chills down my spine. The orb attack was a nightmare. It's bad enough I can't parry it, but they even home in on me. It just couldn't get any worse. And so yeah, I killed her and finished the next room and got done with this level. And just like that, we made it to the last level of Lust. I ran across the tracks as fast as I could, and with that, the first portion of the fight started, with Minos' hand. I don't know why, but I feared this part for some reason. And it actually was pretty easy, because all the attacks are pretty well telegraphed. The only two bad things about this are that firstly, you always have to be close, so it means you have less time to react, and secondly, is because it's so unbelievably long. I had to fight his hand for 2 minutes straight, and the rest of it was gay, but luckily, I beat it on my first try. Then came the more difficult part, where you fight him face to face. Normally, you could just shoot his head and dodge his attacks, but now, the only way you can beat the fight is by jumping to his arms, that he holds at the sides to punch his fingers, or should I say, tickle them, because the damage you do is so small that when I saw it, I knew the fight would take a long time to complete. Even worse, when he spews the parasite creatures out of his eyes, you have to keep jumping and juggling between his hands, and if you die, get ready to play for 5 more minutes, and that's exactly what happened to me. I had to redo it after dying at the end, but thank God I beat him on my second try. So we finally move on to the layer of Gluttony and finish the level with just one restart. Gluttony, the last layer of Act 1, and only having 2 levels, I was determined to beat it, but something else was looming. Something that will bring me suffering. Something yet to come. Just as I enter the first room, I get swarmed by a Mind Flayer, Cerberus, and Street Cleaners at the same time. It was clear that the difficulty was slowly but surely ramping up. At this point, I started hearing a strange noise in the background. I wasn't sure if I was tripping, and then it hit me. That guy has been suffocating for like 5 minutes now. While playing through the last 2 rooms of the level, the same thing happened like in the beginning. An enemy would fall into acid and wouldn't stop bursting. And my god, that was like torture for my ears. The sound was still playing even while I was at the rank screen. But yeah, I beat the level with just a few restarts. We got to 3-2. You know what that means.
Behold! The power of an angel! be bested by this thing? You insignificant fuck! This is not over! May your woes be many and your days few.
The long-awaited fight with Gabriel and the climax of Act 1. It has all come to this, and after so many fails, I managed to beat him in just 13 tries. I just had to learn his attack patterns. And with that, we have done it. We completed Act 1. The time has finally come. The first Prime Sanctum, the bane of my existence. All the comfort, all the luck I had in the levels before will now come to an end, and the real challenge begins now. We start out the level fighting Flesh Prison, and to be brutally honest with you guys, I was more scared about the Flesh Prison fight than Minos. Why, you may ask? Well, when you play the game with weapons, the Flesh Prison is doable with a well-placed nuke, because when Flesh Prison spawns the orbs around him, with the timer under his health bar ticking down, you have a few seconds to kill the orbs after it ticks down to 0. If you fail doing this, they will heal him to full health with no problem. The hard part is that it's challenging enough with weapons, and now I was thinking that this might not even be possible to do with just the 2 hands at my disposal. Another thing really important to note is that on the violent difficulty or higher, the Flesh Prison also starts spawning little Maurice heads that shoot the charged beam attack, and if they by chance hit the prison, the timer will be cut in half. With all the odds stacked against me, I was beginning to think about just calling it a day and doing something else. But while I was playing, I saw that for some reason the prison took massive damage. And yeah, do you know what also is massive? Back on track, I had no idea how that even happened, and after rewatching the footage, it actually turned out that the small Maurice will be my key to victory. The Flesh Prison has many attacks, with one of them being the orb attack that you could normally parry and do damage, but now, since I can't parry, it was useless. I wasn't thinking that it could do anything to help me, but it turns out that Maurice and the orb could be perfectly aligned. When he shoots the orb, it would set off a nuke, hopefully killing most of the orbs and doing large amounts of damage to the Flesh Prison. And with that, I was determined to beat it. Maybe I need a lot of luck, but it could be done, and after so many attempts, this happened.
Free at last. Oh, Gabriel, now dawns thy reckoning, and thy gore shall glisten before the temples of man. Creature of steel, my gratitude upon thee for my freedom. But the crimes thy kind have committed against humanity are not forgotten. And thy punishment is death
Fighting Minos proved to be a lot easier than I imagined. The fight with him using the blue arm is a joke, because all of his attacks are parryable, so I thought it would be a lot more harder without it. And to be honest, I got used to the gameplay scheme of waiting for the right moment and then attacking. Just had to adjust to his fighting style, and because it's up close and personal, it wasn't hard to get hits in. It's just important to not end up in the air, because he will then have the upper hand. All in all, I beat him with only 4 retries, and with that, I beat one of the hardest challenges in the game. We made it to Act 2, ladies and gentlemen, and we start off the act in the 4th layer, Bucharest. This is my least favorite layer design-wise. I just don't like the color palette. I understand, but it's too vibrant for my liking. In these levels, we meet the flying balls. They're not a problem if you kill them. The strat is to pop them fast enough so they don't get enraged. Also, we have the first room with a double weapon power-up. They give you more firepower, but they have harder enemies to compensate. However, I get no benefits from this, while I still have to deal with the enemy onslaught. In 4-2, we get another game mechanic, and this one is even worse for us than the last one. The sandified enemies and the stalkers. The healing mechanic is crucial for this run, since we are always close and need the healing option, and now that in some fights I can't heal will make every point of HP important. I had to collect both the red and blue skull, and I died a couple times at both of the paths. The red one had 3 Maurices, so that was kind of a challenge, but aside from that, most of the enemies are easy to beat. You can also get a secret double weapon power up down there, but that will be no use to me. Getting to the boss at the end of the level, the Sisyphean Insurrectionist,
I knew this was gonna be a drag, but I didn't know it was gonna be this lame.
because half of the fight I would wait for him to land back down, just so I can hit him once and then rinse and repeat. Generally, his attack pattern is easy, just the stomp is an AoE attack, so just watch out for that. I beat him and moved on forward. 4-3 is the only dark level, and to be honest, I am happy that Hikita didn't make any more like this one. Most of it has weak enemies. The only 2 rooms worth mentioning are the room with the pillars and the last one. The strat for the former is to light up all the pillars one by one and to take it slowly, because I would get overwhelmed otherwise. The latter is filled with virtues and Maurices, so the Whiplash will be your best friend traversing this big, vast, far-spreading open space. Somehow, I beat the level with no retries, and I'm almost done with yet another layer. Nothing can stop me now. The rematch with V2. I completely destroyed him last time, so this shouldn't be much harder.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, it didn't go that smoothly as I thought it would. This fight was the hardest and cruelest 7 hours of my life. You heard me right, it took me over 7 hours of straight gameplay. Entering the boss room for the first time, I knew the fight would be a lot harder than our last encounter, but never in my life would I have guessed that it would be this difficult. The first problem arises due to his movement and the boss arena. Unlike our fight in Limbo, here he is a lot faster and the arena is much larger. Since our only way of damage is through melee, we would have to catch up to him, and trust me, it's nearly impossible. Now, I already can smell that someone will comment,
but you can actually just use the Whiplash.
well yes,
But actually no, because if I try to use it, my max health will be limited by half, so that is just too big of a handicap for some measly damage. I would use the Whiplash just in the direst of situations. All of this is bad enough, but unfortunately this is just the beginning of our problems. The next big, and arguably the biggest problem, is his accursed rage bar. Just like in the first fight with him, if he gets away from you for long enough, he will get enraged, and the fight after that becomes unbearable. He gets increased attack and movement speed, and he also will not stop moving even for a second. So Hakita designed the game in a way that if you hit V2 with his severed arm, he will get mad for some unknown reason. The only way for it to be deactivated is to be close to him for long enough till the bar is depleted, and as noted earlier, that is a challenge in and of itself. Despite it generally being useless to try and deplete the rage bar since it would be filled the next time I hit him. But I did that anyway, because my brain was fried due to all the flashing colors I had to look at for the past 7 hours. And oh, don't get me started on the damage, because I can barely scratch him while he can kill me in 2 hits. And so I tried and tried time and time again with no sign of victory. That was the closest I have been to giving up till now. Being desperate and rewatching some footage, I noticed that in a few of my hundreds of runs, I somehow did a lot of damage to him. I somehow parried his shotgun blasts. It turns out that you can parry some projectiles with the Knuckleblaster. If you perfectly time the blast, you can actually redirect and hit V2 with his own shotgun shot, doing pretty good damage. Maybe, and just maybe, this was the key to my salvation, to end my suffering. I was more motivated than ever to crack open this fight and finish it. Now, I just have to think of a way to make the strategy consistent. V2 has a vast array of attacks, each having a sound and visual cue. The audio cues are a little bit harder to react to since they are pretty similar, but on the other hand, the visual cues are much more useful for us. A few moments before V2 shoots his shotgun blast, a larger yellow flash will appear for a second above his head. But even with that, the reaction time needed is really precise and hard to pull off. Also to mention, even if you do parry it, you still have to perfectly aim it at him and hope he does not move. Since his first attack is a shotgun blast 99% of the time, I need to think of a strat, so I do the most damage I can at the beginning of the fight. The strategy was that when I enter the boss arena, I perfectly align myself, so I parry his shotgun blast and also hit him, automatically enraging him. After enraging, he would shoot yet another blast, which I would parry, and if I managed to pull everything off perfectly, I would take a good portion of his health. For the rest of the fight, I would do my best just to survive, trying to parry a shotgun blast, and trust me, I got close many times. Really close. After what seemed an eternity, this happened. I was scared that I would not have a checkpoint before the second phase of the fight, but thank God there is a checkpoint. The second phase is so easy, I beat it on my first try. After that I wrapped up the level and finally felt relieved after 7 hours of suffering. I knew hell was coming, but I was determined to get to the end of this. After all of this pain, I was ready for everything the game can throw at me. Or was I? We made it to Bikini Bottom! Yippee! I felt a large amount of relief seeing a color that is not yellow after so long, and if things couldn't be better, there is a new change in the underwater levels. While underwater, the Whiplash does not build up hard damage. That makes these levels 100 times easier. After clearing up the first room, I had to clear 3 more rooms for the skulls, and most of them were a cakewalk. The only one worth mentioning was the one to the left. There is a lot of orbs coming at you from all sides, so being static for too long would kill you in no time. The strat was to always be on the move and to juggle the enemies. I died a few times, but it was nothing too hard. By placing all the skulls and entering the last few rooms, I got a new enemy type, the sentries. They really are not that hard to manage in this challenge, since the Knuckleblaster is one of their biggest counters. Just don't let them aim at you for too long and you should be good. I wrapped up the level and moved on. This level, unfortunately, is not underwater, so no more Whiplash overuse. Oh, well, also we got a new game mechanic once again, and this time it's not that useful for us, and it's the idol, and oh boy will that make us some trouble. When I saw the idol, all of a sudden I got a vision of the ever-looming cataclysm that soon awaits me. The final encounter of the level with the ferryman was something that I was not so sure about. I personally thought it's easy, but the last time I thought something was easy it actually took me hours. The bad thing about this fight is that it has 2 phases, and that there is no checkpoint between them. My first attempt I actually obliterated him in the first phase, but died to the damn lightning that he casts. The second attempt was not that different yet again, I beat him easily. Maybe it was the Soulsborne veteran blood running within me, since his attacks are pretty similar to a From Software boss. Once again, I almost died to the lightning, so I went around the ship for the 200 health boost and somehow dragged myself to him. The start of the fight went really badly. He knocked me down to 75 health in a matter of seconds. I was pretty skeptical if I was able to beat him this attempt, but I locked in and turned the tides of battle and beat him while being close to death multiple times. We get to my favorite level of the game, the Ship of Fools. I think the level has a large variety of enemies, the dual wield power-up, good level design, a new weapon, and most of the game mechanics thus far. Once again, I chose to go and clear both the red and blue skull paths, and believe it or not, I beat both of them without dying even once. The room with the dual wield power-up was a different story. This room was difficult. The power-up itself does not help me in any way, so that's useless. And then we have a really small room with 2 large waves of enemies. The first one is not bad if we take care of the sentries and the fodder enemies first, and then the rest. But the thing with the second wave is that the virtues are the biggest pain, because if you don't kill them fast enough, they will enrage and they can shoot you even if you are behind the wall. So they should be dealt with first, but that's easier said than done. A Mind Flayer, Cerberus, and 2 virtues, this room was not playing around. A few retries later, and I beat it no problem. Now, the rocket launcher stands before us. It seems we are obligated to pick it up, but I knew there was a way to avoid picking it up. I was jumping around the room blasting, not knowing how to do it. Then I stopped moving to search it up with no luck. As a last-ditch effort, I exited the room, and it seems I somehow activated the next part of the level without picking it up. The rest of the level was nothing worth mentioning. I beat it with no problems, making it to the last level of Wrath.
The Leviathan is the boss of this layer, and playing normally this level is easy. It's so easy you could probably do it blindfolded. I was really curious as to how will this level play out with the restrictions I gave myself. And let me tell you, this fight was a slog. I could hit him only when he charges at the boat and hold his head there a few seconds, so I can squeeze in a hit or two. The other two attacks are his orb attack, which I can't parry, but I could try to deflect them with the Knuckleblaster, and I hope they hit. He also has the attack with his tail, which again is just a waiting game. Somehow I forgot he has 2 health bars, where he does everything at once. I said earlier, with the only difference being he has the tail attack all the time. I was unprepared and died, and believe me, I was fuming with rage. I had to go through everything again. But this time I was not playing around and had no more nerves to wait. So I was persistent to try to climb up on him and hit him as much as I can. As the fight started, he launched me so high I thought I was gonna get to heaven. And that strategy of climbing up on him actually proved to be working, since I beat him right then and there with just 1 restart, and it took over 12 minutes of my life. But I was happy that I was done with yet another layer of hell. And after all this entire sequence, I still haven't made a single joke due to how unbelievably mid this fight is. The climax of the second act, the heresy layer. Luckily, there are just 2 levels, and we are done with the whole act yet again. I don't know how, but most of the level I completed with rather ease. Even the big room that has the secret power-up I finished on my first try. I stumbled only when I got to the last room with the 2 hideous masses. I almost passed that room on my first try, since we destroyed everything, and a sword machine was all that was standing between me and the finish line, but I died so close to the end. And after that, everything went downhill. I died time and time again to the hideous masses. Their hook is pretty hard to dodge, and if it happens to grab me, I can already start digging my grave. It turned out that the biggest hurdle I had to pass was the 2 of them, and after finally getting done with them, I beat the level with 6 restarts. The long-awaited rematch with Gabe. Will he prove to be harder to beat than our last encounter, like with V2, or will he be just another level we cut through?
Machine, I will cut you down, break you apart, splay the gore of your profane form across the stars. I will grind you down until the very sparks cry for mercy. My hands shall relish ending you here and now!
Yeah, this is not looking good. He beat me in 5 seconds. It seems that for this fight, one mistake can cost me my life. This will be difficult. Just kidding, this was so easy. I manhandled this femboy in a few minutes. Yeah, maybe I got lucky, but really this fight is astronomically easier than our first encounter. He had his little rant after I beat him to submission, and with this, I had entered the endgame.
We're in the endgame now.
There is not much left, but a few more levels that will put me through torment. I was almost blinded by the Discord light mode opening of the level. And yeah, I went through the level, picked up the skull, and was stared at like when you pull out gum at school. I decided not to give any, so I got jumped. The mannequins are a really tough enemy to fight. They go 200 miles per hour. They climb up walls and ceilings. We were basically playing tag, and the entire time, I was it. The worst part, besides their speed, is that their orbs are actually homing in on you. I didn't have problems for the most part, but then I encountered the Minotaur. Now, you may ask, how can you hit him if you don't have a ranged option? And let me tell you, I didn't know either. The thing is, if you fall onto the rails, you automatically take damage and get teleported to the cards. Now, I thought I can cheese him by climbing up on his back, but Hakira played me, because the Minotaur has a special sweeping attack if you stand on his back for too long. So after so much time, I came up with a consistent strategy that would be worth trying. I learned his yet again, so I know when is the best time to try to jump on his back for a hit or two. Now, since he does not bleed that much, I needed a new way of healing.
Sometimes he will take his hammer and destroy one of the cards. Shortly after destroying them, there will come a new card with one stray, which I can use to heal myself. And listen to this! Sometimes, if I don't hit the stray close enough, I won't get the health, and just because of that, I lost a few runs. It was a long time after that I finally managed to beat him. But now, I knew there was a whole new phase, but I didn't see a checkpoint anywhere. With just half of my health and being totally unprepared for this, I entered the room and got killed in a few seconds. When I pressed the restart button and I saw I was at the beginning of the rails, I was close to just logging out myself IRL, and I got up from my PC and walked away. After 4 therapy sessions, I came back to my PC and pressed the button on the cart. It was like the hand of God himself caressed me when I saw I got teleported right before the second phase. All the pain, all the suffering gone in an instant. The second phase, just as the first one, is a game of learning when to attack and when not to. It was not that punishing, so I beat him rather easily, unlike the first stupid phase. Moving on to the next level, we get introduced to 2 new enemy types. The first one is the Guttermen, and I can't stress enough how much I hate them. If you get close to them, they keep swinging, and if you're far away, they basically use auto aim on you. The strat for them was to get in close for a single hit, and then dash away and rinse and repeat. The next enemy are the Gutter Tanks. The strategy for them is not much different than the Guttermen. You would hit him once and dash away until he is dead. For the most part, I didn't have much trouble until this fight. One Gutter Tank is not that hard to deal with on its own, but the problem arises once you defeat him. After you do, 2 more will spawn, and if you concentrate on one and dodge his attacks, the other Gutter Tank will bombard you with rockets. My strategy was to do as much damage at the start, and then I would try and go around the whole arena slowly picking them off hit by hit. It was a treacherous process, because if I died, it would take a lot of time to get back on track. It took a lot of trial and error, but yeah, I succeeded. Now, the following sequence of events are so mind-numbingly stupid, I literally cannot write it into a coherent script, so I'll let you watch it play out. Let me explain the strat for the last room. As you saw, I had to cheese the Sisyphean Insurrectionist every time, because otherwise the room would be nearly impossible to complete. For the second part with the Gutter Tanks and Guttermen, was to just go in circles, hitting them once, and at the end you can just pray to God to survive when the pillars disappear. All in all, the hardest regular level thus far, but we are closing into the end. Even though this level is pretty infamous for having the biggest enemy arena and almost all types of enemies in the game, it was not that hard. The factor that helped me the most, especially for the last room, was the enemies infighting. The last room I had to play a few times. I firstly thought the way to beat it was to take part in gang wars and help some enemies kill the more dangerous ones, but I understood that violence is not the answer. The answer was actually killing human-like figures comprised of blood so I can quench the sadistic needs of a tree, and after I did that, I beat the level. As our last obstacle in the violence layer, we have to beat Benjamin. I climbed up his bottom section all the way up to his defense system. After demolishing it and coming inside of him, I made it to his core. This was the part where I genuinely thought the challenge might be over, since Benjamin has a shield preventing me from touching him. But the Knuckleblaster parry comes to save the day once more. The only way I can damage him is by redirecting the orb he shoots at me using my red arm. So I proceeded to do just that. The very last push I had to do after destroying his core was to escape on time. The enemies are really hard to deal with on their own, but adding the timer to all of that is what makes this hard, since I have a pretty bad damage output. The guided tanks were the biggest problem, but after getting rid of them, I knew the only thing that could stop me was the timer, and I managed to escape in the nick of time. And with that, I completed the last playable layer at the time of recording. All that was standing between me and my ultimate victory was... Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Everything we have done thus far has led us to this moment, the ultimate challenge, the level beyond all others, P2. This was the level I was fearing since I began this challenge run, but after all I have been through, I have nothing left to fear but fear itself, because between me and finally completing this challenge, P2 is all that is left standing. And with that out of the way, our last foot of the journey begins. The first room, also known as the Weasel's room, is 4 Serbs and a ferryman that spawns after you kill any 2 of the Serbs. And on top of all that, I have 2 virtues outside the room. Now, the problem is that after some time, the virtues enrage and start casting faster and bigger beams that stay for long durations on the ground. But the problem is that when you normally play these rooms with weapons, it's doable to beat the room fast enough before they enrage. But with this poor damage I have, it's nearly impossible, if not impossible, to do it fast enough. I was hopeless, but then I remembered. I remembered the teachings, and then I went into a corner and started poking at their heads. I would hit them alternating one by one and then kill them all around the same time. When the ferryman comes, I can only hope my dodge game is at its peak. But after everything I went through, I became a master at dodging. With him out of the way, I just teared the balls up and beat the first room. Now, I thought the next part would be difficult, but I beat it rather quickly. There is not much to say about this room. There were no special strats. It was just trying to strive through the first room and the hallway with the Serb and street cleaners. And I beat it like 7 tries. But the same can't be said for the next room. The next infamous room with the idle mind flayers. It has hordes of enemies, from 2 mind flayers to sword machines, sentries, Maurices, virtues. I knew that this room I can't beat just by dodging here and there and hitting a few times. It would require a well thought out plan. And after hundreds of deaths, I thought of a pretty simple but really hard to pull off idea. The idea was to use them to kill each other. The mind flayers could shoot the sword machines, and if positioned perfectly, the sentry could shoot them too. It took many fails, and doing it over and over again. But I managed to learn to do it almost 60% of the time. But that still does not answer the question about the second part of the fight. Now, you may think I came up with a genius strategy that I will display to you right now. But yeah, I hate to break it to you, but there is no strategy. I really had no idea what to do. I would just play and hope by some miracle I could pull it off. And I did it a few times and died by the mind flayers. It was really close for me to log off IRL, but I fought, and after what seems like an eternity and over 300 fails, I did the undoable and I beat the room. I will just quickly talk about the Sisyphean Insurrectionist room. It was not that hard, to be honest. I beat it quite easily. And thank God it had a checkpoint, so if I die, I don't go all the way back to the idle mind flayers. I was slowly but surely crawling to the end, just a little bit more. But that bit won't be easy. The spaghetti room is not that bad, but the thing is, there is 2 of them, without a checkpoint between. My focus at the beginning of the both rooms are the sentries, since they lock in on me. For the first one, after I throw the sentry into the blood, I would just juggle between the virtues and Maurices, trying not to use my hook, since it will limit my max health. I would use it in just the direst of situations. For the second room, it would be pretty similar with a few differences. In my winning run, I would kill 1 sentry and then concentrate on Maurice. After that, I would just kill the second sentry and slowly get rid of the 2 stone chads, trying to bait them to jump into the blood. And that worked.
and I had one more room before Sisyphus. The last room is undoubtedly the hardest room in the game, and I knew that before I even entered it. I will explain to you the winning run part by part, because trust me, I don't need to even try to explain the torment I went through to prevail. The first part is with the sword machines and the ferrymen. I used a similar strat I did with the labyrinth room in 7-2. I would run them around the edges, picking a few moments to get a hit on one of them, while at least dodging all the attacks from them and the strays. Where the problem arises is if they get sandified, because then I can't get any health back, since I don't bleed and I can't parry. So, if they do get sandified, I can wave goodbye to any health region until the next part. I never learned to do it consistently, since it involved a lot of RNG, but I relatively got the general idea of what I need to do. The next part I get to, if I even manage to get through the first one, is with 4 sentries. To be honest, out of all the parts of this room, this was the one I was most scared of, since I didn't know if I can get to all of them fast enough before they gun me down. And the answer was in the sound cues and of course some RNG. I would again go in circles, hitting them one by one, and if I hear the sound cue, I would have to be perfect with my dash to dodge the bullets. And if you are wondering what I mean by RNG, there is a chance for the sentry to shoot the hideous mass in the center of the room and for the shot to just disappear, since it can't pierce through him. And that would be it. But trust me, it's easier said than done. After dancing and dashing around the map, there comes the second to last part of the run. First, I get rid of the virtues, jumping between them and trying not to use my hook that much, even though I have to so I don't half my health. And after doing that, I hope to God the Serbs down at the bottom have at least been damaged nicely by the hideous mass or the virtues. And in my winning run, I was lucky that only one was left, with the hideous mass finishing him and the job for me. After all that, I'm still not done. I got a whole idle hideous mass waiting for me. After destroying the idol, that's all the health I would have to use to do the last push. I would have to be playing perfectly if I want to do it. And trust me, my heart was pumping, knowing that if I die now, I would go all the way back. And once the worst happened to me, I failed at the very end. So getting to this point again, I knew it was to be or not to be. And then it happened. I did the unthinkable. I beat the room after hundreds and hundreds of tries. All that was left is him. I entered the last room. As the blood was raining down on me, I smelled that my victory was soon to come. I beat the Flesh Panopticon on my first try, and there he was, the last one standing before me and my unimaginable feat. I got ready for a treacherous process of hundreds or even thousands of deaths, but I was ready for it. I listened to his monologue and got ready for pain. Psych suckers, I beat him on my 5th try. I did it. I beat everything that stood in my way. I fought valiantly. I was sucking up every fail, every pain, every letdown. I beat Ultrakill with just the red arm. In your green arm, don't worry, you won't be excluded. But yes, it's over. I can finally rest. Yeah, if you wanted to know about Sisyphus, it was no big deal. I just used my attack pattern powers one last time and danced with him as the blood was pouring everywhere. Yeah, get that Shakespeare writing out of the way and let me enjoy the fruits of my labor. So yeah, thanks guys for the support. We'll be seeing you the next time I have to suffer. I will leave the rest to Victor to close the storyline.
Anyway, as some of the more observant members of the audience might have guessed, this video was filmed before the new Encore update. The only reason it took so long was because I was busy. If you want to see the Encore levels be beat, get us to 100 subscribers or 1,000 likes. And if you manage to do both, I'll open up an OnlyFans. That's it. Get off my back.